Just stop now. Stop.
Well, good evening.
No, I was saying, Gary, stop it.
The Who's today were at Rosehill, and it was a fairly Goshen meeting. But anyway, during the going back to the provincials last Saturday, which of course I hadn't looked at, but have since. These watching videos, geez, it's what a wonderful way to try and survive in this world, watching horses run around. So I wouldn't do anything else, of course. Anyway, going back to that meeting at Newcastle last week, there was only one leader to win, and that was in race 7. It was trained by I Own the Lead Gay, and this runner, ridden by Tommy Huey, a runner called San Turio, he was smart enough not to, when I say lead, not find the fence. He'd sat outside the leader, which was another unraced runner called Angel Dancer, who was the favourite, trained by Peter Moody. He'd finish up running 4th, only beaten 1.8 lengths. So its run was obviously better than it looked, because you could not stay, on the 18 pence at Newcastle last Saturday and win. By the time I got to the turn, the wind was very strong that day, like it was in Sydney last Saturday out of the northwest, and the leaders on the fence were the ones that were most affected. By the time they turned for home, this runner was off the fence, got past the favourite, and fought on very strongly down the straight to only win by 0.3 of a length. But it was the runner that, I suppose, if you want to say, was leading on the turn, but not on the fence, the only one to get home all day. So when you are doing your form, you have got to adjust to that situation. We went to Kembla Grange, the next provincial meeting we had that came up, and that was on Tuesday, the 15th of July. Going back to Newcastle that day, the track was good and the rail was 3 metres out. Now at Kembla Grange on Tuesday, the track was also good. The rail was 5 metres out. There was no wind, but the inside section of the track at Kembla Grange was obviously not as good if you were able to come off the pace and down the outside. We did have one leader to win. It was in the second race, the 2400 metre race, the 1.5 mile race. Guitarist, trained by I Own the Lead Gay, went straight to the lead out of the straight, and was well rated in front by Paul King, who of course P King, whose nickname is the Duck, and it was able to keep on rolling along in the lead and staying close to the fence and win. There was another runner that led all the way at Kembla that day. It was on the fence turning for home, and it was an unraced horse in the 4th race called Sugar Rock. But by the time they'd got to the winning post, I think getting out a little bit under pressure in the straight, but finding the line very strongly, winning by 2.3 lengths. So its run was a little bit it had a bit more merit in it than it actually looked. So, but it was better to come off the pace and be off the fence in the straight at Kembla. Now, the exact same situation was the Mother and the Glory at Warwick Farm, where we had a very light south-easterly breeze blowing, which died off in the afternoon to be nil, which didn't have any effect. But the effect was, I think, the irrigation that they put on this track prior to the rain that we had the night before at Warwick Farm. The rail was in the normal position. The track was upgraded actually from a dead 5 to dead 4. What does that mean? It was quite obvious that the best part of the track was off the fence. You had to be there wasn't no leaders won on the fence, and as I say, the more pace you were able to get if you were back in the field, the much easier it was for you to swoop and get the chocolates, which plenty of runners did. So when doing the form there at Warwick Farm, you have to allow for that situation. Now, here we had the next meeting on the Thursday, the next provincial meeting, which was at Wyong. The track was a good 3. The rail was in a normal position, and very similar to the 2 days prior, the 18 pence wasn't the place to be at Wyong. There was only 1 leader to win. As I said, the rail was in a normal position. There was only 1 leader to win, and that was in race 7. And it was a runner called Here Comes the Sun, who was drawn in a barrier. It had barrier 9 in a field of 16, and it was ridden by a young girl called Mrs. A. Skerritt, a 4-kilo girl. She jumped. She didn't head for the fence. She obviously knew herself, or was informed by the trainer or whoever. Don't you dare go near that fence, because I'm telling you now, it's like quicksand in there. And she didn't. And when those horses appeared turning for home, she was extremely wide, and as she was swinging, she went even wider, making the swoopers go very, very wide. By the time she got to the post, she still had a margin of 1.5 lengths to spare, but most certainly her staying and going very wide on the turn was the thing that got her home. If she would have stayed close to the fence, crossed to the fence and led, I don't think there would have been any way in the world she would have won. And because she went so wide, it made it harder for the swoopers. There was a runner in this race called Strata Lodge who drew out fairly wide, and they went that wide on the turn. It had to switch back inside runners and finish up running second. So the way that race was run determined the result. We did get to the last race on Thursday, and this runner, you can give it an extra tick. It was a winner and favourite called Private Secretary, who has now had 4 starts and won 3 races. It was resuming today, trialled down at Goulburn, and it drew barrier 1. So everybody, by the time this race had come around, was adjudged to the 18 pence not being the place to be, and it settled back in 3 or 4 pairs back on the fence. When they swung for home, had to get around the heels, I think, of Lover of Life, who was 3 back on the fence, and copped a bit of a prat after it got around its heels, and was still only 1 off the fence, and then got around it and went through on the fence to win by 1.5 lengths, finding the line very, very strongly. So it's run, when you're doing the form, you've got to give it an extra tick, because its run was much better than it looked because of the bias on the track. Now we got to so we did have 3 meetings there in a row where the fence was no good, but that wasn't the case today at good old Rosehill. Today the track was given out a good 3. The rail was 6 metres out, and when the rail has been out in that position the last at least 2 meetings, the fence has been the place to be, and that was again the story today. Even though we did have the second winner, the short price favourite Cluster, the 11 to 8 on chance, come wide and win. But the fence was if you were on the fence today, leading and saving ground on the fence, it was an advantage. Today we saw in this first race for the robots in the grandstands, where there were lots of people out of the cold breeze that was going through the very, very sparse few who were in the marketplace, just the usual 15 usual suspects were there, braving the cold weather. They did have some heaters in the ring. That was a beauty. If you were down near the turnstiles where you come in, which is about 200 yards away, you might have got a little bit of heat off the heaters, because the wind was blowing all the heat down there. But in the betting ring, it had no effect. It was just a useless situation. We had a wind out of the southwest, which never changed direction all day, but it was very strong before the first race, and it did stay in that strength up until about race 5, where it eased off a bit. And by the time the last race came around, as I say, it was still in the same direction, but the strength of the wind by race 8 was maybe only half of what it was at its peak during the day. The first race, the winner got the advantage of leading on the fence, and that was a runner called Liberation, who was resuming from a spell and was trained by I Own the Lead Gay, went straight to the lead. The second horse, who was, I don't know how it happened, but it was galloped on from behind. I thought they were spread. It must have happened at the start of the race, because they raced in pairs coming down the side and to the turn, and there was plenty of room behind each runner. But it was galloped on the second horse. Not that it would have made any difference. It did sit outside the leader. It was beaten 2.3 lengths, and it was 7.1 lengths back to the third horse, who was sitting fourth on the fence, having the bias in its favour from barrier 1, and it did start the favourite, a runner called Harrier Jet. It was one of 2 runners trained by Chris Waller. His other runner in this race, Double Happy, when the gates opened, it went up in the air, and then when it came down, it stumbled, and it was all of a sudden 3 to 4 lengths behind the field as the gates opened. It pulled up with a heart problem as well, and before it starts next start, it will have to trial. Now, I'll give you the fluctuations, the full fluctuations in this race, to show you what the situation is between the marketplace and what you can actually get, or what's on the screen and what you can actually get in the marketplace. I'll give you the first race, the flux, and just tell you the actual percentages in the others. But in this first race, they said there was 105.6. But in the marketplace, as I keep on stressing to everybody, if you have any respect for your section, don't be betting, especially with the cancer of racing or the corporates, because you're taking under the odds all the time. 105.6 best fluck on the screen, 96.5 only us captains, because we're all ding-dong dells gave in the marketplace. These were the flucks. Number 1 ins and outs went from $5 out to $6, which you wouldn't see on the flux, back into $4.40. It touched $4.20 at one stage. Press Report, with the owners of Press Report, please step forward. $3.50 out to $6, back into $5.50. Harrier Jet started favourite. We put it up. The second pick at $4, 3 to 1 bar, got out to $4.80, back into $4.20. Double Happy, $4.40 to $5.50. Fastnet Diva, $10 out to $13. No Luck Needed, 60 into 50. Liberation, now Muggins here, I gave $7.50. The best luck, $6.50. I gave $7.50, and I didn't like it at all. And it went from 9 to 2, $5.50 out to $7.50, back into $6.50. And Konashi, it went from $101 out to $151. And as I said, it led all the way, did have the bias in its favour, Fastnet Diva, but by the same token, it looked a fairly strong win. Race 2, they said there was 104.8 on the screen, a few less in the marketplace, about 102, and this was the runner who was possibly the best win all day because they never went real hard in front. There was only a field of 8 runners. It was 11 to 8 on, expected to win, $1.70. They said was the best fluck. It started that price, $1.70, but there was $1.80 given on the fence. It was there for a long time. And it settled back in second last position and was hooked wide by jovial Josh Parr after they turned for home, and it was able to swoop up at the 100. Well, before that, it hit the lead. It only won by 0.3 of a length from the runner who had the run of the race from barrier 1, Rock Sturdy, who got inside or maybe around the leader, not too sure there, but it did have barrier 1 having the best section of the track behind the lead, a great posse to be, and it got through and, as I say, was only beaten 0.3 of a length. It went from $9 out to $11, Rock Sturdy. But the winner, even though it was a short price and only just got in, there was more merit in its win than it looked, because of the bias. 107.7. We offered the robots in race 3 in the marketplace, 104.5. This race was won by Cradle Me, David Pfeiffer trains, Christian Reith, who's got a good rapport with this runner, Cradle Me. It goes well for him. He dropped the shillelagh at the 100-metre mark. Apparently, I didn't see it happen. He missed the kick by a length when the gates opened. He and as I say, dropped the whip at the 100-metre mark. But he did have the advantage in the run of being on the fence. He went in between runners after they turned for home, straight through the high diddle diddle, or the comics if you want to say it, and win by 0.8 of a length. He beat the two stablemates, Joe Pride. He had 3 runners in this race, and they ran 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. It was on the outside of the winner, Casual Cradle Me, and that was Casual Choice. And when they turned for home, he had no alternative, Jay Collette, but he came wide. He did loom up, look like winning, but that outside section, they just didn't seem to make ground today. And the winner came through the middle and only beating by 0.8 of a length. After sitting outside the lead, Green Beret held on for 3rd. It started favourite, and down the outside, after easing off heels, was Ernest being held up as long as it possibly could by Winona Constant. It finished well like it always does. It was only beaten 1.3 lengths. But down the outside, which, as I keep on saying, repeating myself here again, wasn't the place to try and win the races today. It started $3.10, favourite Green Beret, sat outside the lead. We gave $3.40. We gave $3.40 also, Cradle Me. It started $3.20, and the stablemate to the Green Beret, the runner that ran 2nd, Casual Choice, was extremely hard to lay. It went from $4.80 out to $6. When it won last start, Green Beret, it was it was a bit of an optical illusion. To those who priced it going off its run last start, we all know it was wide, but it was, as I say, an optical illusion. The way that race was run allowed this runner to look, I thought, a bit more impressive than it was. And not that I marked it big odds, but I marked it a lot longer than it actually started. But by the same token, I marked the winner around about the same price. There wasn't much between them when they hit the line. That saving ground on the inside and having barrier 1, I do think held Cradle Me, although it has got a great burst on it. Maybe if it had drawn outside and sat outside runners, it might have been still able to win if it came down the outside. Race 4, they said there was 102.5 on the screen, 4 less than the marketplace, about 98%. And here we saw Chris Waller have 3 runners of the 7 runners that went around in this race, and he got the trifecta. He did have the 3 picks, and they were Black Jag, the winner, multilateral, and also Done Nothing Wrong. If any runner was affected by the wind here today, you could possibly say it was Black Jag, because it was the only distance race we had on the program. They started at the side of the track. When they got into the back straight, the leader was running into the wind all the way. Coming down the side, runners outside the leaders were also copying the wind. But Black Jag did have one, I think, counteracted the other. Even though it ran into the wind down the back, it did have the advantage of being close to the fence and leading, as I say, which was an advantage today. It fought on very well after being headed by Done Nothing Wrong, the stablemate who sat on its outside. The winner sat back in 5th position, 1 off the fence, and after being eased off the heels turning for home, finished a little bit too strong for the leader Black Jag to beat it by 0.1 of a length only, and coming off its back from last position, easing in between runners, was Too High Tech, who was only beaten 0.8 of a length in 4th position, and it was a 20-to-1 chance. So, you know, the distance races again, being fairly average netties without a great turn of foot, there is always generally little between them, and runners that get softest run in a lot of those races are the ones that get the cash. Race 5, 103.3 on the screen, 97 only in the marketplace, and here we saw Runaway Star, who I must admit I didn't like at all, go straight to the lead, find the bunny, and it was more or less all over on the turn after it had got rid of the favourite in Costanati, who was chasing it all the way. When they jumped out of the barriers, ridden by clever Kerry McAvoy and trained by Gerald Ryan, Runaway Star, he looked at them, and Costanati didn't want to lead. I can't believe it. He must have been instructed not to lead Serge Lisny, our greyhound boy who'll come back as a greyhound. He took hold of it in Costanati, and he let Kieran come straight across him and find the fence, and then he had complete control of this race after he got to the lead. Costanati looking at him all the way before the turn, and well, from the 600-metre mark more or less to the turn. Runaway Star was 2 lengths clear of Costanati, and it was another 2.5 to 3 lengths back to the runner that had barrier 1, and that was Arquette, who went from $11 to $21, 10s to 20s in the betting ring. It was third back on the fence, as I say, about 5 lengths in the lead, and on its outside was Colouring, who finished up running second, only beaten 1 length. But excuse me, the way this race was run, and the way the track was playing, it was going to be very hard for runners to come from behind, and especially Wonderbolt, who was eased at the start, exactly like it was last start, but the track was playing completely different to what it was today. The rail was in a different position last time at Rosehill, where it was able to be travelling better than any other runner in the run, ease to the outside and come down the outside when it trotted in last start. But today, because the track was playing towards the fence and leading, its task was made extremely difficult, and it had to come from well back from last position, clear last of the 600 metres, about 2 lengths behind the second last horse, who was Floral Gold, who got slightly held up in the run, um, and was back from 70s into 40s too. But Wonderbolt's task, the way the track was playing, was made virtually impossible, and it came down the outside. It was only beaten 2.5 lengths, so its run was a lot better than it looked. The winner, of course, we saw at its previous 2 starts when it had resumed. It ran about at Gosford and wherever else it ran. I think it was Gosford and Wyong, and Gerald Ryan, being the great trainer that he is, was able to correct its waywardness, and there was a gear change today. The tongue control it was removed, and it raced very truly today. It went as straight as a gun barrel to the line to win by a length, and as I say, well, it came from 3 back on the fence, being helped by that position, Supreme Joy, the 50-to-1 chance into 3rd hole. Race 6, 105.2 on the screen, 102.5 on the in the marketplace, and here we saw the Avery General Lefe get home. This runner lobbed into the position where I would say most map people had it running, and that was in more or less the 1-1 position. I Own the Lead went straight to the lead under the sun, and it finished up running second last, beaten 5.2 lengths, but had the advantage of the bias, so its run was ordinary. It was a 30-to-1 chance anyway. On its outside was Hidden Kisses. Tucked away third on the fence, having every possible chance, was Tromso, and on its outside General Lefe, and he's more or less exactly like he did last start at Rosehill. Just after easing off the heels before turning for home, he did give it a bit of a dig up, and then as they started to flatten out, he after the dig up, just raced up to the leaders, and then he would have looked. He looked at the leaders, Clever Karen, and said, "Gee whiz! All of a sudden, you fellas are starting to give in fairly easily." And he sat up slightly and just let it roll past them. And when he got past them, he went for it, and it showed the great turn of foot, exactly like it did last start when it won at Rosehill, and put the race in his keeping by shooting at least 3 lengths clear and finish up winning by 1.3 lengths. It came from 3 back on the fence, Romantic Moon, one of 2 3-year-olds in the race, the other 3-year-old being Wouldn't It Be Nice. Wouldn't It Be Nice had to come from last position right around the field, the widest runner in the straight, beaten 2.7, so its run was better than it looked, whereas the other 3-year-old Romantic Moon, it had barrier 1, saved ground on the fence, that was beaten to 1.3 lengths. And the second pick here, Scream Machine, well, of course, it was always going to be well back, had the outside alley, barrier 9 in a field of 9. He went back to second last position. Instead of coming around them, he went through the high diddle, and ran into 3rd hole, beaten 1.6. But the way the track was playing, it was hard for the back markers to win. We came to race 7, and here they said there was 104.2 on the screen. Again, losing figures for the captains in the marketplace, whereas the best place to punt if you're betting. Don't sit in the TAB or bet with the tab or the corporates. Come to the course. We're giving money away. We're giving section away. You find on the ground out there. 99% only in the marketplace. Now here, it was quite evident after you watched this race. There was nothing trap wide in the race. There was nothing trap wide, as I say. They more or less raced in trotting in pairs, coming down the side. But the 4 runners, the first 4 runners past the post, were the 4 that were on the fence from the lead back to 4 back on the fence. And the runner that led and had the bias in his favour was Sunday Too Far. It was Sunday Too Far was $11. You wouldn't see it to $19 at the end of betting. Beaten 2 lengths. Had the favours. Directly behind it from barrier 1, My Sabille, who got around its heels. The runner that sat outside the leader here was Balaclava Lady, the runner from Interstate, ridden by Kath O'Hara. It didn't hang, but I'm pretty sure it got on its wrong leg turning for home, and it got wide on the track, giving all of the runners behind the leader on the fence a mile of room to come through. And as I say, My Sabille went through from barrier 1 and got around the leader's heels, and got clear and looked like winning. But coming off its back was the runner that only had 50 kilos on its back, 3 under the limit, Made to Order, ridden by greyhound Serge Lisney, trained by Chris Waller, resuming today, coming off its back and grabbing it near the line to beat it by 0.2 of a length, and tailing it through all the way was the runner that we put up the 5-2 favourite. And at the finish, the captains were saying, would the owners of Sense and Reason please step forward? It was 5-2 to 9-2, and it, as I say, it tailed the winner through, and it finished up running 4th. So the runners that were 1, 2, 3, 4 on the fence, they ran the, whatever they called it, the first 4. And the runners that tried to make up ground down the outside found it fairly difficult. The winner, after opening up $8.50, got out to $13, and very, very well backed by 2 of the pros, into $13 into $11 for a good bit of section. They took 13, and then why I didn't wind it into 11, I don't know, but I said you can have another plate of me at the $12, so I bet them the 13 and then the 12. They had to make a 10 at the finish. You could still get $11 when they jumped. As I say, it was hard to lay Sense of Reason. Zuccarina, there was money for it at one stage. After opening up, $6 got out to 7, back into around about $6 towards the end of betting. The runner that's finished up starting favourite here and wasn't suited by the way the track was playing, also backed for an absolute poultice by one of the pros, was Maluti, the runner who was backing up from Wednesday at Warwick Farm. It was $6 out to $7, plenty of $7. They didn't show you that on the flux screen, but it only started when they jumped. You could still get $4.40, but very hard to get. But it was $7, 6 to 1 into 13 to 4, $4.20 or $4.40 when the starter said go. I'd finish up running 5th, but it was one off the fence sitting past midfield, which and found the line like it does, always. Gets back and runs on. Made up ground without ever look like winning. But as I say, the first 4 had the favour of the fence. We got to race 8, and here, emphasising once more how it was an advantage to be on the fence, and we saw the import here, Evangelist, who you could easily say was the best bred horse to go around here today at Rosehill. It had barrier 1. They said the best fluck was $15. Muggins here, the very, very first bet I put in my ledger was at $17, 16 to 1. And one of the pros said, how much do you want? Do you want $1 million on it at $17? I said, well, look, do you mind if I don't bet you quite that much? He said, no. He said, well, how much? $500,000 on it. I said, well, look, I was thinking a little bit smaller than that again. He said, well, come on, make up your mind. I said, all right, well, I'll test you right out. You can have, I'm not going to tell you how much I'm betting, but I bet him far, far too much. I'm an absolute steam tug for betting him what I bet him. And at one stage, this runner was into $11, 10 to 1. I think they might return it only that price. I was again $14 when they jumped, paying the penalty. It led on the fence, ridden by Clever Karen from Barrier 1. As I say, an international runner, been racing in Europe, trained by the very, very astute trainer Tony McAvoy, ridden by Clever Karen McAvoy, and had a couple of trials, one at Gawler and another one at Morfordville, and he brought it up here, and he's been lucky enough to draw Barrier 1 and get the bias in his favour, and that was enough to make it hang on and beat the runner who sat on its outside, and that was Moral Victory. You wouldn't see it. $13 given about this runner. I think I say the best luck was 10. I saw $11. Now I saw $13. It only started $7, so it was 12s into 6s Moral Victory. Sat outside the leader after coming from an outside alley. Barrier 10 in a field of 11. Looked like it was going to get it past it, sort of all the way up the straight more or less, but never ever did, and failed to catch it by that slender margin, the I suppose. And it was 2.4 lengths away to the third horse, who was Cape Clear, who sat in 6th position, one off the fence, and ran a fair race. But the winner had the advantage of the leading on the fence and being close to the fence, as I keep on saying. The runner that was, I suppose, disappointing in this race was the runner that started favourite, and that was Pedreus, another import who's had quite a few starts here now, or maybe 6 starts or whatever it is. It's that third on the fence directly behind the leader. It finished up running 5th, beaten 3.4 lengths. So its run was fairly ordinary. We put it up the 13 to 4, $4.20 second pick, got out to $5, very well backed into $4.40 at one stage, back to $4.60 at the end of betting. The runner we put up favourite, Abasso, it settled back in second last position. So its task was, from that position, was always going to be extremely hard. Pulled wide in the straight, to finish up running 6th, beat 3.7 lengths. So its run was better than it looked. We put it up a $4 favourite, and it got out to $6. So it was 3s to 5s, very, very hard to lay. And as I said, we only gave, excuse me, 99% in this race, with some runners not having a price. So that was about the meeting. When you're doing the form, if you watch the tapes, you will obviously see very clearly that how the track played. So you'll have to adjust your form to that situation. Now, tomorrow, of course, we have this fantastic meeting up at Hawkesbury, the Clarendon course, up near the airstrip up there at Richmond. Now, if you've got, as I said before, any what's the word for your section? Any respect for your section, whatever you do, don't put it through the cancer of racing, who are going to bet you the rock bottom odds, or betting with the corpus. Come up to the course. If you're anywhere in Sydney, there's plenty of freeways up that way, up now up to Hawkesbury. And if you've got any respect for your section, get up there, because there's going to be 5 or 6 complete and utter dills up there, me included, who will be giving you the best odds you can possibly get about anything you fancy tomorrow, anywhere, of any captain in the world betting on the meeting tomorrow. Us 16 tugs on the track will give you the best price about any runner you want to back. So if you've got any respect for your section, as I say, get up to Hawkesbury tomorrow and make it go or stretch that little bit longer. Good evening.